Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery podcast are proud to bring you Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast. Join your hosts, Mike the Podfather and Jersey Ed, as they address the real issues in health and wellness for first responders, from physical and mental health to relationships and work-life balance. We leave no stone unturned. Answering the Call, the First Responder podcast is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery answering the call.
Hey everybody, welcome to Friends in Recovery Answering the Call, First Responder Podcast. I am the Podfather.
And I'm Jersey Ed.
How are you, Ed?
Good. We have a guest today.
We do?
He's pretty big sitting in the middle of us.
I like his hat.
I know. And I like your hat too there, Podfather.
Oh, I have a hat. That's right.
Yeah, you do.
I have a hat on.
You got a hat on. You didn't even know. What? You happy to see me? You have a hat on.
I'm happy to see you.
We have Bill Farrell today with us. And we're
nice Irish lad.
Yeah, I thought he was Italian, but...
Irish.
You can elbow him if you want to.
This guy can kick my ass, so I see him in his uniform.
Yeah. Me and the Podfather are sporting the Boston look.
That's right. Me and Bill. My new best friend.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to take care of some business first.
You got some business over there?
I do. I always do. So,
what do you got?
Of course, I'm not going to read it like Melissa did on our other show, but
Melissa did a great job.
I know. So we want to thank Genesis House for sponsoring this podcast. Without them, we couldn't do it. Thank you, guys. And in addition to Friends in Recovery podcast, we hold community events around the country, maybe around the world one day. But right now, it's around the country. Voorhees, New Jersey, and Palm Springs, Florida, are up and running. They're doing very well, very active meetings. And coming soon, Lowell, Massachusetts, and Newtown, Connecticut, starting in January. Basically, what this is just Friends in Recovery community. We want you guys to kind of get out there and, if you want to start your own Friends in Recovery, you don't have to be part of Genesis House. If you listen to this podcast and you want to start a little community of Friends in Recovery, give us a call, email us, and we'll get the whole package out to you, and you can start it, and Melissa will get you going with all that and put more work on our plate for all that. But so get us through our Facebook and all that. This is where I mess up on things, but we are powered by your likes, follows, subscribes, and shares. Follow us on social media and help us get the word out. And leave us not a 1, not a 2, but a 5-star review. Okay?
5 star.
5 stars, right, Sweets? 5?
All 5.
All right, good. All 5. So Sweets taught me last show how to count up to 5. So, and then remember, we're always looking for guests and speakers to share their stories. If you're a professional, we would love to have you on too. And just get a hold of us on all the social media stuff. Well, it's time for Jersey Ed's podcast pick of the week. I always mess this up and I don't do it. There you go. Drum roll, please.
That was a drum roll.
So my podcast pick of the week is called Rock Bottom to Recovery. Now, I've been noticing that, Bill, you sound like this gentleman on Rock Bottom to Recovery that I listen to. Do you know this guy?
Is that the Kennedys?
Yeah.
In between all my sentences, I ended with an ah.
That's right. Exactly.
So,
that's the one.
Why don't you tell us about
That's a good podcast. You want to? Bill, you're actually the host on it, and you want to tell us a little bit about us for a podcast pick of the week?
So Rock Bottom, number 2 to Recovery. We are on iTunes and Podbean. We're not on iHeartRadio like you guys, but maybe you've inspired us.
We inspired you
to strive to be better, to get the word out like you guys are doing here. Rock Bottom to Recovery was a friend of mine's idea. He wanted to start a podcast where we could talk about all roads to recovery in a respectful way. And so he came to me because I do a lot of different things. I know a lot of different people. And he said, hey, do you think we can do this? And I said, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to. Mm-hmm. And I reached out to a couple of people, and one thing led to another, and we started the podcast. Yeah. And we really try to cover all aspects of recovery, from the political side to the medical side, to people who are in recovery. Mm-hmm. And so we had kind of like what you guys got going here, mm-hmm. the Podfather, Jersey Ed. You got a good mix. You work off each other. Yeah. That's what Shane and myself had.
Okay.
So we started to kick it off, but unfortunately Shane just kind of disappeared on me. And I was like, oh, no, he didn't. That's immediately. Anybody in recovery is like,
Did you say bye?
What happened to Shane?
Oh, geez.
So, but no, what ended up happening was, in recovery, there's other issues that have to be dealt with. And like the mental health side of things that kind of end up fueling the addiction. What is it? Dual diagnosis, co-occurring type things. So Shane really got a little overwhelmed with life, which happens. And he kind of fell off the radar. So I tracked him down. I gave him. I was calling him, I was texting him. I didn't hear back from him. So obviously I'm nervous because you know how that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I reached out to somebody that's close with him, and they're like, no, he's doing well. He's doing good. And we brought Shane back. It was he came in to talk about the mental health side of things.
Okay, good.
But we really have a great mix. I would love for him to come back in, but maybe he will. We do it from time to time.
Good. Yeah, well, listen, it's a great podcast. I listened to a few episodes already, and it's a great episode. And I always text Mike, and I'm hoping he doesn't text me back, but that fucker texts me back every single time. Podfather over there.
Well, I like to keep in
Thank
touch.
God. I know.
We live 3 or 4 states away from one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're a good. We talk almost every day, Mike, and it's great. We are both of us are in recovery. That's not what this show is about. This show is about first responders,
That's right.
And I think we have 2 of you sitting here. I'm not one, but so you do the math. And Bill is a corrections officer over at Suffolk Corrections.
Suffolk County.
Suffolk County Corrections.
I'm in Boston.
In Boston, yes.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure to visit your lovely facility.
That's correct.
not as a guest, not yet.
Keep your shit up and you'll be over there. Trust me. And Bill's going to take good care of you.
Yes, exactly. And it got pretty hectic over there, and I can imagine what's behind those walls over there. I don't even want to imagine. So.
Did you feel the stairs when you came in the front
Oh
door?
yeah. Well, I was on the phone, and one of your wonderful officers kindly said, "You're not allowed on a cell phone." I was like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah. I noticed that I had to go visit a client that was in Middleton lockup 2 winters ago, and I just retired as a police officer, and I had been a correctional officer. Of course, I'm in regular clothes, and I now know how it feels. Now I know how it feels because from what I've understood and what I've seen, I mean, it's a tough job as it is, but they have one speed, and it's straight ahead. You don't have to be polite or anything. And but as soon as he found out I was law enforcement, he toned it down a little, and we became friends. I gave him a T-shirt.
We work off one mode. It's called
that's right.
suspicious.
Yeah.
Suspicion.
and survival.
So when you came in, I'm sure everybody was staring at
Oh
you.
yeah, they were, and I came in, I think, on shift change too. So I had them all staring me down, man.
You look like a convict.
I do, don't I?
Yeah,
but I had a
you-
nice shirt on.
Right.
I was just about to get to that Jersey Ed Sweets.
Thanks. Good.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jersey Ed, but was that a purple colored shirt
Yeah,
that you were in?
exactly.
I believe so. Yeah,
Yes.
no, it was
Yeah.
pink. It was
It was
pink.
pink,
Yeah,
correct.
Yes,
with
that
tight-
was not a good color choice that day.
So after you left, I was like, "Who's the guy in the pink shirt?"
in the tight jeans. Yeah, I bet you a lot of the cons
God.
were happy to see you.
Oh yeah.
Put
No, I
him
didn't
in
get
here.
that far. I didn't get that far, but it was it was a wonderful experience. I'm not ever going back there again.
New
But
guy.
I got your back, Ed.
Thanks. So then he was asking me for a phone number or something. I'm like, Bill, listen, that guy just screamed at me. I said, I am not going to go. I got your back. I was like, all right. So I'm in there like cautiously, like trying to get him a number really fast. So
Just try not to make eye contact with anybody. That's how we
I was
work.
hiding behind him.
Yeah.
Don't make eye contact.
I don't know
my
if you noticed,
God.
but I wouldn't make contact with anybody in there, and I work there.
I know. Oh God! But you guys have a tough job over there, man. I've never done it. I've never done the job, but from hearing Mike's experiences being there and some of the corrections officers that I work with and talking to them, God bless you guys. It's tough. It's a tough. When you came out, you were in full uniform, but I didn't notice any weapons on you, and that's something you guys don't even do, right? You can't carry.
No, we don't carry. The only weapon, this is how badass we are, Podfather. The only weapon we carry is our mouth.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that
And
can
your
either
brain.
get us into trouble or it can get us out of trouble.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And as you get a little bit older, you when you learn to realize how to use it properly, it can get you out of a lot of stuff. But we don't. and probably the I always tell the new cadets coming in or the new officers coming in, show respect.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. If you show respect to the inmates will respect you back.
They're human beings, so
Bill,
you gotta kind of remember that too. You know.
Without a doubt.
But I mean, well,
do you
supposed to
agree
be
with
human
me?
beings.
Do you agree with me, Bill, that a lot of us that work at these jobs could be right in the, we could be on the other side, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
You know, and I worked in the prison back in the 70s, 78 to 80, and you know that's what we did because any one of us could have ended up there, you know, and there's no doubt in my mind I could have. You know?
Well, especially where we came from, you know, our background, you know.
Well, I grew up right in the city. I grew up in Jamaica Plain. I went to school in the South End.
JP.
When the South End in the 70s was all abandoned buildings,
Sure.
A lot of drug activity. And we used to take the train down, the elevated train system from Jamaica Plain, Green Street, all the way into the South End. And you'd walk on the main road because it was so bad down there. And so I grew up in the city. You know, we... like you said, I've never forgotten that I could easily have been on the other side of that door. And what's funny is I see people from the neighborhood on the other side of that door. I hadn't seen this kid in probably over 20 years, and I saw him in the unit, and I automatically shook his hand, and that's kind of a no-no in there.
Right.
But I just kind of forgot, like, for that split second, I was just like, oh, wow, and I hadn't seen him, and, you know, he was struggling with addiction, and, you know, so that's one of my... how I'm able to function in corrections.
How long have you been in corrections?
I'm in my 14th year.
Wow.
I love it. I love my job.
What shift?
People give me a lot of crazy looks when I say that, but I love it. I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Good.
Do you work the day shift?
I
night
work the
shift?
day shift, 7 to 3. I worked the overnight shift for probably about 6 years, I think.
Right.
And that was just because we needed to do it with the family and the kids. I needed to be home. And so, and I started late. I started at the age of 38. I was a laborer at a 223. Did construction for a while. Then in mid-2000s, you know, the economy went bust and didn't have any work. And somebody at the gym kept saying, you working yet? And I'm like, no, I haven't found a job. He's like, you should apply to the sheriff's department. And I was kind of like, I don't want to do that job. And then I was like, wait a minute, I don't even have a job. And then I thought, it's probably safer to deal with inmates than it is my wife. So I applied.
That's some money.
And one thing led to another. And, you know, I was in the academy. And I have to say, at the age of 38,
That couldn't have been easy.
I held my own,
I bet you did.
Godfather.
All right.
Oh, well, you're in
Those
good
young
shape
kids,
now.
actually, so I was in the Marine Corps too.
Right.
Ah.
I knew that.
So, you know, when we were out on the asphalt doing push-ups and doing all the exercises, all I had to do was wait for the young kids to start going, and I knew they were going to stop.
Yeah.
So I just had to hang
Kept
tough.
going, right?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes wisdom and knowledge gets us through some of those hard times too.
does.
So
Well, you got through the
Yes.
Marines, you can get through the academy for the correctional officers.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
you know, the biggest obstacle in the academy was that I was older, and I have people screaming and yelling at me, and I'm like, "What? I'm a father. I own a house.
Not gonna listen
Don't
to your
talk to
shit.
me like I'm a kid." But you got to take it in order to get through,
Right.
and I did get through, and I have to say, like, corrections, as you know, Podfather, because you were in Bill Ricker, correct?
Yes, Borough Council Corrections.
It's the corrections is that part of law enforcement that had gone by the wayside. It wasn't really recognized. We went behind the wall, and you know, people didn't hear from us. People really didn't know anything about us other than if we hit the news because something happened. And as you know, things do happen.
Oh, yeah.
And so because of that, you know, we ended up with a higher PTSD than a combat veteran.
Absolutely.
Heart disease, obesity,
Suicide rate.
Suicides.
Number one, you guys are, unfortunately.
Divorce.
Yeah.
Divorce
Number
is
one.
massive. You know, the suicide thing is it's
Talk
huge.
about
I
that.
mean,
Talk about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we know now, firefighters, police officers, the suicide is through the roof. I can tell you at my facility. So we have two facilities. We have the House of Corrections, which is where I work, and we have the Nashua Street Jail.
Right.
In my 14 years being there, we've had 5 officer suicides.
Imagine that.
God.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
If that was a bank, if that was an industry, if that was Wang Labs or one of these businesses, that'd be an epidemic.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
But like
Yeah.
you say, society doesn't see it. They don't know what you do. You go to work, your neighbors have no idea what you're doing, you know, and
Yeah, because you hide behind that wall, but that wall is very active behind it. You know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. Hey, look, real quick, we're gonna take a quick break here, Bill, and then we're gonna get back and we'll dig a little bit deeper. What you do over there too? Besides,
Excellent. Okay.
Friends in
Controlling
Recovery,
inmates.
Answering the Call podcast.
Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. The First Responder Recovery Program at Genesis House is led by a doctorate-level therapist with direct professional experience as a first responder himself. Treatment modalities focus on psychiatric care, relapse prevention, stress management, and trauma-informed care for PTSD. Learn why their individualized approach makes a difference for first responders. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Friends in Recovery, Answering the Call podcast. And, hey, we have a great guest here today, Bill Farrell. And, Bill, we were talking before you went, how you gone into corrections at the age of 38, kind of like midlife. And, you know, obviously your previous stint in the Marines, I'm guessing 4 years?
Correct, yes,
Yep.
4 years.
And, you know, I mean, so the money is good now. The benefits, I think, are fabulous.
Yeah.
My personal opinion is that they're really good. When I worked at the Barrick House of Correction, I started at $199 a week in 1978. And
Bill makes
you know,
201.
no, it's
Yeah, we were really cranking up the pay scale.
but it's not an easy job. But tell us more. Tell us about
What your job is there? Actually, you have 2 hats that you wear in the corrections.
Yes, correct. I work the line. I am a correction officer.
What does that mean for us non civilians?
So when I'm working the line, I'm working the units.
Okay.
So we house men and women, not together,
Okay.
not yet,
Not
but
yet.
it looks like we might be heading in that direction.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So
Saves money. Come on.
I work the units. We have we just actually went up from 75 women to 259.
Oh my God.
Yeah, parts of Framingham I think closed down, so
Yes.
we're getting all the counties.
Yeah.
That's a huge change. So I do that. I do regular corrections, and then I'm also the EAP officer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of 6 EAP officers, so that's the Employees Assistance Program.
Right.
So what that means is if anyone gets themselves into any trouble, any of the employees, doesn't have to necessarily be corrections officers, but we tend to get ourselves into a little bit of trouble from time to time.
absolutely.
But any of the employees, their family members, will get them the resources that are needed to help.
And the training comes with that position, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, all kinds of training. As a matter of fact, I think this is, I met Jersey Ed.
That's it. Exactly. Yeah.
Through the Nisa Leclerc
Nisa,
from the DOC EAP.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, when we first started this, so it's a 6-man team. So every 6 weeks, we rotate on. So that just means that 1 week, we don't have to work in the unit.
Right.
So we kind of go in, show our face. But we're
Nice.
on call 24/7.
Sure.
You know? So,
Well, before you guys, there was just good old Danny Ryan,
that's correct.
and
yeah.
and they had to replace 6 of you guys for Danny.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Danny was a good guy.
Dan's great.
Yeah.
Dan's fantastic. He did his job well.
He did. Yeah.
I think one of the most important things as far as being in that type of a role is, for me personally, is you have to be very careful how you present yourself, how
Absolutely.
you conduct yourself. And I do that in a very professional manner. I try very, very hard not to talk smack about anybody, which is rampant in the business.
Oh, my
that's
goodness.
just rampant everywhere,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. I think
And-
so.
and I get
in this
some-
room, it's rampant.
Yeah. And I get some great stuff that flows through my head.
And you can't tell anyone.
And I can't. I
know.
Once in a blue moon, it slips out.
Yeah.
But it's really good because, like I said earlier, we've kind of gone by the wayside. And it wasn't until probably, I want to say maybe early 2000s, they really started looking at the field of corrections.
Right. You're right.
And just saw, wow, there's a lot of issues going on here. And so as they started looking into it, they, if we see something like horrific, like this is how I start my day. I get into work. I have to do that first count, which means you have to count all the inmates in your unit and make sure that it's accurate with your logbook. And I always mentally tell myself I could possibly see somebody hanging from the previous shift. And it happens. And those are the type of things like you just don't do in a normal 9-to-5 job.
Right.
I mean, Podfather, like the stuff that you see, and that old school mentality is, push it down. If it really bothers you, you could share it amongst your fellow friends, your officers, but they might call you a pussy or something like that. Right. And it's not that they're being mean. No. It's just that's the coping mechanism that we use
it is the culture,
to survive in that field. Sure. And I'm sure I know it's the same with law enforcement.
Sure, it's identical.
But it comes at, obviously we know now, at a cost.
Right.
So what I've seen over the 14 years that I've been there, and I have to say, that 5 suicides, that's just the 14 years.
Right.
There was quite a few before we came on, before I came on.
Sure.
Dan Ryan, which was our EAP officer, he retired, and the department, looked into this particular program. And so we go through training. We met up with NISA. We reached out to them first and said, can you help us get started? And they did. They were fantastic.
They have
the
a great
DOC
program.
puts all kinds of programs together. They're always inviting us. We deal with domestic violence, obviously substance use, gambling, pornography,
mental
sex.
health issues,
The pornography and the sex, that always tends to get a chuckle. So there's when you begin to understand addiction, everything could be somewhat addiction. That. What is that? Peppermint.
Flavored
coffee
peppermint.
that you now love?
Mocha. Peppermint mocha coffee. Good Lord.
I'm going to say Sweets supplied that.
He did. He is the dealer.
I am the pusher.
I'm going to tell you, Sweets is a great pusher name, isn't it?
Sweets is. That's a great name.
It comes from a long history of doing this.
Of pushing.
I've had the benefit of being on the other side of the wall, unfortunately. So.
I was going to ask you, which house are you in? Were you in?
Middleton, Concord Farm,
all right.
Cumberland County up in Portland. I've been around. I've done a tour. I've seen my fair share.
What's your favorite?
Middleton, actually. Middleton was my favorite, just because I knew everyone there. I knew the like you said, you had talked about a gentleman that you saw from your neighborhood and so on and so forth, and you went up and shook his hand. I mean, that fourth wall was broken between me and a bunch of corrections officers that I went to school with, and so for me it was, I went through what I went through when I was in jail to meet my punishment for my crime, but at the same time I was a person. They knew me as a person, and they treated me with respect, and they met me where I was at, and it didn't take away from the fact that we knew each other as people, that I was there, and those are the COs, those are the corrections officers that I had respect for too,
right?
I would actually look out for them the same way they look out for me.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I had that happen once in the day room at the House of Correction. A fight broke out, and I can't mention the name, but one of the inmates actually helped me, and he was the type of guy that nobody was going to give him shit for helping out. You know what I mean? And he pulled the guy off my back, and he didn't look for anything. He just did it spontaneously. And
but that's where the respect comes in,
right? Because you do treat people with respect, and even as a cop, you stop people. Nobody's guilty. Nobody ran the red light. Nobody ran the stop sign. Very seldom that I have somebody say, "Yeah, do you know why I stopped you?" Yes, because I ran the stop sign. And those are the people that I would say, "All right, have a good day. Be careful." Because we weren't playing this mind game, and it's the same thing in prison. I mean, you just got to teach respect. And I've taught academies. I was the EAP for the Sheriff's Department for 3.5 years at Billerica. I was the EAP for the Lowell Police for 8 years. My last 8 years of my career, I was very fortunate. I had a chief, Ken LaValle, Billy Taylor. They gave me that spot. And I got to say, though, and as you know, I worked my ass off, and I was always on. Sometimes I was afraid to walk through the building because I was like a magnet, out of sight, out of mind. But as soon as they saw you, they had a problem. They knew someone who had a problem. The kid had a problem. So
you get that a lot at the
Oh yeah,
at the house over there.
Well, it's funny. Like Sweets was saying about the inmates. When you first start, it's changing now. But the way they teach in the academy, you're thinking you're going in. If you get out that day alive, it was a good day. You're ready to do combat. That's what I remember. I remember coming in fresh out of the academy. Now I'm a little bit older, and I like to think I'm a little bit wiser. But I had two little old ladies. They were inmates, and they were like, "Good morning, officer." And I'm like, I got the hands up. I'm like, "Turn around, ma'am. Turn around. Don't make any sudden moves." But that's you go
One
in
of them
thinking.
wearing a walker too.
You see all these shows. You go in, you're thinking like, these inmates. But then once you kind of get in, and you realize the inmates aren't your problem.
Right.
It's your fellow officer.
Right. The upper echelon, right?
And I have to say that because I'm not knocking fellow officer, but the mentality was when you first started, you had to prove yourself.
Right.
You had to get yourself into some type of a fight or something along those lines.
Right.
Before the officers would begin to talk to you. And I never really understood that mentality because that's just not how I roll. My brothers and sisters, I'm reaching out to them. I'm telling you, this is what you want to do. And sometimes I tell them, and you'll know this, Podfather, if you're not sure, the inmates will tell you.
Yeah.
They do. I'm telling you, they take care of you. It's a fact.
Well, I mean, what I was saying earlier is that, and you probably see this, there's a battle between whose house is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And, that's one of the things that I learned, just from my friends that were corrections officers, that we would talk, and they're like, listen, man, this is your house. Yeah. Like, you live here. Well, I'm just visiting. I'm doing a shift. I'm going home tonight. And it is their house. Like, they live there. And so, I mean, you're coming into it. And to be honest with you, as someone inside that wall, I can tell you, we just want to live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There are the bad apples, and they're the people that, as a corrections officer,
Mm-hmm.
you got all that stuff that you got to be on your toes for, but the majority of the folks just want to get in and get out.
Hey, I'll tell you, I know two women that are correctional officers, and I got to tell you, they are, and I was a correctional officer. In the Army, I was an MP, but I also worked in corrections for a short time. They are two of the best officers you're ever going to meet. They're not huge, big, muscular, although they work out and they look fabulous, but what they have up here goes a long way, and the respect they give. But on the other side, they don't take any shit.
Yeah.
No one's going to talk fresh to them. And I honestly feel like because they're in a man's environment, they don't get the recognition that they deserve to get. And it's kind of sad. But this is the career they chose, and I'll tell you, that Sheriff Katusian should be very, very proud. He has two women that work for him that are this capable to do that job.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned Sheriff Katusian because back in 2012, I think, that Sheriff Katusian brought up correction officer wellness. He did a conference and really kind of began to shed light on it. I mean, as far as I know, he really kind of kicked it off.
Yep.
At least in our state, and he did,
Absolutely.
without a doubt, definitely deserves a pat on the back for that. And because it's a hard field to be in, no matter what you do
That's right.
for us, we're never happy. You could give us the world, and we'll be like, "Oh, you didn't give us the moon. You guys suck. What's up with that?"
Moon? Yeah, you gave the moon to someone else. Right.
So I'm glad you mentioned him because things are changing.
Right,
As bad
they
as stuff
are,
it is and probably still is, it's also getting good too, and that's because of education.
Well,
and
you
awareness.
mentioned it, and it's so nice talking with somebody that understands it, and you're at that mature level where you're not looking like, hey, what about this? We didn't get that. You worked hard. You were in a union. You worked your ass off.
Right.
Now you have a job where you don't kill yourself. You could be killed, but you don't kill yourself.
Yeah.
You take care of yourself, and the benefits are great.
Yeah.
And what I liked is the Department of Justice. You hit the nail on the head. The Department of Justice have done these studies, and they realize, hey, hold on. It's not the police that are leading in suicide. It's not the police that are leading in divorce. It's not the police that are leading in heart attack. It's correctional officers.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on here? And now they propelled this, and Peter Katusian, I know a lot of people, politician, whatever, I've sat right across from him, and I tell you, he does have the understanding, and he has the drive, and he really has pushed it forward. And I think anybody that works in that line of work should, if they meet him, go up and shake his hand, because 20 years from now, things will be a lot better, and it's because of a guy like him. I mean that.
And I agree with you. And I think podcasts like this one, like Rock Bottom to Recovery, and all the other podcasts that are out there, and the people that are doing the work, you can't go wrong when you educate yourself.
Right.
You know, I mean, you're the master, right? When
He's
it comes to the education. I got Boston public school 12th grade education.
Right.
But what is it? There's something like when you expand the mind, it just can't go back.
Well, you got like a master's degree in life working
Yeah,
there. I
yeah,
guarantee
yeah.
you that,
Yeah, we all do in this room,
My-
actually.
My,
you know?
my college education has nothing to do with what I do when I sit across from people. That was just a hurdle to get over. I mean, although I've used a few of the therapists I've read about, Margaret Mahler and Eric Erickson, and I do look in the books once in a while. But honestly, it's all about what I've learned. It's all about life in general.
The
being
school
a
of hard
cop.
knocks, man, that we've all been through,
Right.
and you guys are still going. Well, you, Bill, definitely in there. You I always say you got to learn every day. If not, then you're screwed.
Well, I'll throw this in as we come towards the end. I tell all the new people coming through, like this is how crazy the world is today. Corrections is probably one of the safest places to be in law enforcement because the clientele that we house, we at least have them when they're clean and sober. And if you know how to reason with them, you can reason with them.
Absolutely.
And things are getting better for them, too.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
A
without
lot
a
of
doubt.
programs.
Yeah,
and again,
absolutely.
Katusian, you got to pat him on the back.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, Friends in Recovery podcast, answering the call. And this has been a great.
Absolutely. Bill, thank you very much.
Thank
Bill
you for having
Farrell.
me, guys.
Yeah. And hey, listen, switch over to our other channel because you might see him on the other channel.
You might.
Maybe.
You're gonna.
You're gonna. Oh, really? Spoiler alert.
Now we get behind what actually motivates.
That's right.
Beantown Billy. I got to have a nickname too.
Beantown Billy.
Beantown
There you
Billy.
go.
Stay-
You got it.
Stay.
You got it.
Check out the other podcast from my. Oh wait, I'll tell you this real quick.
Go ahead.
Good.
So nobody uses their government name in the facilities. Everybody has a street name. So
I like that.
Officer Farrell's street name is For Real.
For real.
Yeah.
For
For
real.
real, for real.
For
Thanks,
real.
for
For
real.
real.
What do you think Jersey Ed's street name would be? Like Eye Candy?
Eye candy. Bald-headed buck.
You'd probably take on the name Sweets in there.
I would. Hey, listen, I'd have to be your bitch.
It'd be real sweet.
That's
Real
right. That's
sweet.
right. Well, guys, great show, and it was Bill very fascinating, and or for real, very fascinating. It was thank you very much for coming on the show, and make sure you listen to Rock Bottom to Recovery. Find it on all the podcast catchers. It is a great show. So
Friends in Recovery, Answering the Call podcast.
stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.
That concludes this episode of Answering the Call, the First Responder Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House for sponsoring the show and supporting our first responders who are struggling with addiction and mental health. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates. If you are interested in becoming a guest on the show, email us at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com.